I'll give it a shot. Yes.
All right. Let us screw around and do a bumper. So whenever you're ready, Eric Zimmer from oneyoufeed.net, hit it.
This is Eric Zimmer from oneyoufeed.net, and I am happy to be on Vroom Vroom Veer. Watch out for the curves.
Beautiful. Now let's screw around.
That was too professional a take, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a little too good, but that's okay. You did it all right.
I've been having to do some voiceover stuff, so I've kind of got that little.
You're a little too professional, a little too polished. So that's okay. There was a little like.
Don't worry. As this podcast episode goes on, that polish will come right off.
All right, I'm gonna hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Jim Kukral, I hope I said your name right. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Jeff, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited. Good job on semi-pronouncing my name correctly.
It's like, I want to say it just like Jim says it, but anyway, I'll keep practicing. So you are at Jim Kukral. Kukral.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about at your business today.
I'm excited because I just turned 50 years old.
Congratulations.
Gen Xer. Thank you.
Congratulations. Get a colonoscopy, please. Keep going.
Well, we'll talk about that. Believe me, I just got over it.
Right.
I had one last week.
Wow.
I'm excited because I threw away a 25-year marketing career last year.
Good for you.
And have completely changed my career completely from something I made money from 25 years. And I'm more excited and happier and passionate than ever.
Well, that's a good move. Congratulations.
We'll find out, won't we?
We're going to get into all of that because that would be what we call on this show a big veer, right? That's a big veer. So you were vrooming for 25 years. You were making money. You were doing marketing. You were a marketing entrepreneur. And then blam. And we'll get into the blam because the blam is what happened, the veer, later on. But this is Vroom Vroom Veer. So that means we have to go back in time and talk about stories from when you were younger. So where did you grow up? What part of the country?
Born and raised Cleveland, Ohio.
Ooh, nice.
The flyover states, the people.
Gotcha. Okay. I grew up in Michigan, so yeah, I get it. Nobody knows where I'm from, so I get it. Were you in a small town or you were in Cleveland proper?
Just about, 5-6 miles out of downtown Cleveland. So
wow.
Typical suburb,
Right. That's totally different than where I grew up in Michigan. Okay. So I grew up in the Midwest. So for me, I was very much a rural kid. So did you have more of a run around in the woods kind of upbringing, or were you a city kid?
Well, yeah. I wasn't downtown Cleveland, but we're in the suburbs,
Okay, gotcha.
In the 70s and 80s, growing up as a kid in the suburbs, that's all you did was run around in the woods.
Right. Yes, totally. Yeah, it was awesome. Did you play Kick the Can? Do you remember that game? Does that make sense to you, or is that just a?
Yeah, I remember Kick the Can. I don't really ever remember playing that. I don't think This wasn't
okay.
I wasn't that bored. I had to play Kick the Can.
Oh man, dude. I know we sound like old people now because we're officially old. I'm 52, by the way. So I just had my colonoscopy 2 years ago. I think I got mine when I was 49 before my 50th birthday. But anyway, yeah, I loved playing Kick the Can. But when I say that, right? A, I sound like a hillbilly. And
when you
B,
say
I sound old.
Yeah, when you said, do you play Kick the Can? I was thinking, are you like one of those, guys from the Pioneer West, where you had the wheel and you were rolling it on the thing with the stick and that was your play thing growing up?
I think Kick the Can was like a regional game, but it was really fun. So like I can briefly describe it, but it's a lot more fun because it does sound like dumb, right? It's like, oh, we're just going to run around and kick this can around the yard or whatever you're doing. But it was
eating dirt sandwiches.
yeah, playing marbles with not really marbles. I get it. No, but kick the can was cool. You had like an old beat up coffee can that it didn't really matter as long as you had a coffee can, right? And the goal of the game was somebody was it. Right. And then everybody else would run out and hide. Okay. But you had to hide within you could only hide in like 1 yard of the neighborhood. Okay. So the guy it's his job to see people and then jump over the can and say their name. Over the can on Jeff. Right. So if the person who's it jumped over the can and said your name before they could kick it, then they had to go to jail. Okay. And then anybody in jail could get freed if somebody else kicked the can. So it was always like a race to kick the can, if that makes sense. It's like a prison game.
Officially never played that or never heard of that version.
That's awesome.
I maybe just remember people kicking a can around just for fun. But no, you've officially got me on that.
It was a fun game. I miss it. And there was a Twilight episode where they played Kick the Can, but they didn't really get into the rules. They just said they were playing Kick the Can. So anyway, I digress as usual. Okay, so what was high school like? Were you a nerd? Were you an athlete? What sort of kid were you in high school?
I was a bad kid. I was, I was in the band. But I was friends with everybody. But I was friends with everybody. I was friends with the jocks and the nerds and the stoners and the greasers and just one of those guys friends with everybody. But
like the
I was a terrible
kid.
Yeah, I was a terrible student though. Straight D's across the board.
Wow.
My guidance counselor. This is the greatest difference between today's world. I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Right.
And today, back in the old days, I remember going to my guidance counselor's office, 1985, and he looks me right in the face. He goes, "Why are you even in this room?" He goes, "Your grades are so bad." He goes, "You shouldn't even apply to colleges." He goes, "Wow, why don't you just go and be like a garbage man?"
Did he?
And
really
I looked him right.
That?
Yeah, he looked me right in the face. He goes, "Just go be a garbage man."
Yeah,
and I was like, "Okay, all right, okay, whatever." And
thanks, buddy.
And I'm thinking back to this day, and I still laugh about it. And I'm thinking, can you imagine if a guidance counselor walked into some student today and is like, "Don't even bother trying to apply for college. You should just go out and drive Uber because you're worthless," right? Like, can you imagine the outrage that would happen today?
Yeah.
But I believe
it's a different world.
Those old days was a very much character building exercise.
Totally. Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm an entrepreneur today is because of that kind of attitude and somebody telling me I can't do something.
Right. No, I get it. That's interesting. So tell me, did you just were you just pissed off in general, or?
No, I didn't care. He was right. I was terrible. I should have been a garbage man.
I'm trying to get at for me, showing up and being in school was fun, and it was easy to get B's and A's. So I don't know what that means, but I was definitely kind of if I got a C, it was sort of a little shaky, right? But it was pretty easy for me to coast and get A's and B's. So did your parents not look at your report card and give you crap for getting D's?
They
all the
did,
time?
but listen, okay. I was the
you were just committed.
Kid.
You were committed.
I was the fourth kid.
Okay.
All right. The last, the baby, but removed by 10 years.
Oh, so wow. Okay.
They were already 10, 11, 12 years older than me. By the time I was born as the mistake, by the time I was around, they were like, we already did this, whatever, just do whatever you want. No rules, no curfews. Don't worry about grades. Just, you're fine. It was glorious time to be alive.
Yeah. I got one D. I got a D-, and it was actually a gift. So I took typing in my senior year, and it was me and everybody else. I think there was one other dude, and all the other people in the class were girls, right? So I was just in this hormonal haze. like the whole hour, and I had no idea what was going on. And I was just smiling and hitting the keys. And then I would turn it in and have no idea what was happening.
There you go.
And the teacher at the end was like, "This is a gift that I gave you this D." I was like, "Hey, I'll take that D- and say thank you. Thank you."
I could sum up my high school career kind of like the beginning of Tommy Boy, the movie. Remember, he walks up and he's going to graduate from college, and he sees the score on the printout, and he says, "I got a D. I passed," and he starts freaking out. I graduated. That pretty much sums up my high school career.
Wow.
I passed.
I made it. Well, it's a good thing you did. Yeah. So good for you. I had a buddy who was like really super smart, but like he had some sort of, I don't want to make him sound like a horrible person, but he was a horrible person clinically. So like he had some mental health issues and abuse issues. And daddy abandonment issues. He had a lot of issues, right? But one of his things was he just like, if somebody told him like, okay, like you didn't do well here, right? He did not take that well. He didn't take negative feedback well, right? So he just like quit school, and he should have graduated because like he ended up getting a GED real easy. But a GED is not an equivalent to a high school diploma, kids out there. They say it is, but it's not even close. So anyway, so let's move on. Did you end up going to college or not? It sounds like maybe that's a no.
No, I did.
You did?
I applied to 4 schools, and the only one that accepted me was the University of Akron.
Okay.
And here's the funniest part about this whole thing.
Right.
Got straight D's in high school, barely graduated.
Right.
Went to college and did a 4.0.
What the hell?
So here's what I started to learn really young. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family.
Right.
I learned really quickly growing up without parental advisement, being a latchkey kid, being on my own, doing my own laundry from the time I was 10 years old. You got to
tell me what you were eating. Yeah, what were you eating?
yeah, mom would make a crock pot meal and say, "Eat when you want."
Oh, that's awesome.
If you're hungry, go heat up one of those Stouffer's meals in the freezer.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So it was, I've been independent since I was a little kid.
Right.
I didn't like the format of high school. I didn't like having to be there at the hours that they told me I had to be there. And when I got to college, everything changed. It was like, hey, you're on your own. Do it. Study when you feel like it. Take care of things at your own pace. And that's true to this day. I need to do things when I want to do them, how I want to do them, and I excel.
Gotcha.
So it's really, I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur until I was 30, which was 20 years ago. But the signs were there when you look back now. I look at my kids, the same thing. I've been telling them the same thing their whole lives. I'm like, look, you're going to have to decide. You want to sit in that office chair under the soul-sucking lights of the fluorescent lights and have the boss like in the office? Or do you want to, own the restaurant instead of working at the restaurant, right? I didn't realize till I was 30 I wanted to own the restaurant. And thank God I did.
Well, that is a real, you have to really want that. And it has to be sort of like they're young, right? I really believe that entrepreneurial, it's almost like you don't have a choice, right? Some of us can choose to like, okay, I'm going to go work now. It sucks, but I'm going to do that because I would rather do that than the other thing, being my own boss. I've learned that. I learned that, and it took me years and years and years too. But after I got out of the military, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how not to have a job, right? So that's the key lesson, really. I didn't really want to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't want to have a job. So I found another way around that, a different sort of hack. We can get into that later because it's not about me. So you go to college, you 4.0 college. That's pretty amazing. And did you do marketing in college?
Yeah, I went in and I just kind of did. I chose my degree path because I asked which degree path has the least math in it. Perfect. And they said, well, go into communications. You only have to take one math class. I said, that's perfect for me. So I did a PR degree. back in the day when public relations was actually writing press releases.
Yeah, Twitter made that all kind of go away, right?
25 years ago. So so PR and marketing.
Interesting. Okay. So then what was college? Okay, what was the first job after college? I'm assuming you had a job.
So I got out of school right about the time that the internet was starting to turn into a thing.
So like 97-ish, 98-ish, 99-ish?
Or even before that, really. I mean,
so the CompuServe version of the internet.
Yeah, real early internet stuff. I started one of the, me and a buddy started an agency, an internet marketing agency back before Google existed. And we grew that. I was the third employee. We grew that to about 150 employees. And then I left and started another company and grew that to about 300 employees. And then we sold that to a bigger company. And then 20 years ago, I was like, look, you know what? I don't like having employees. And I quit and started my own small marketing agency. For the last 20 years, I've been running my own small agency. But yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
Right. So you never actually got a job?
No, I mean, technically I worked for the first guy. I mean, but
it didn't feel like job-like.
Early partner,
Okay.
But no. I mean, yeah, I did have, but right before I did that, I did work in the basement of a phone company where I designed phone book ads for about 9 months.
Okay.
So yeah, but I've had pizza delivery jobs and you name it. I've had regular jobs before, but I realized really quickly after my first real job when I was delivering pizzas and the son of the owner was stealing money out of my till. Ooh. My delivery till. And then the owner accused me of stealing the money.
Right.
And I looked him in the face. I said, your drug addict son is the one who's stealing the money. And he said, my son would never do that. And I said, I watched him do it the other day. And he accused me instead. And I told him I quit.
Good for you.
So, you learn these lessons, right? Like one of the other first jobs I had, I worked my butt off for this company for 6 months, made them a lot of money. And then they gave me a Christmas bonus for like $400, right? And I was like, this should have been $4,000.
Right.
And they were like, well, you don't deserve that. I go, wait a minute. I just made you a couple $1 million, all the work I did. These are pain lessons you learn as you get older, right? Like I equate things into pain. Like when you get sick and you go to the hospital, they say, first thing they ask you is what's your pain level, 1 to 10, right? So everybody's got that threshold, right? It's the same thing in your life, your career, with anything you do, with a job, right? Your pain level might only be a 5 at your job. When it gets to 7 or 8, you're starting to look at options, right? Yes. When it gets to a 9, you're like, oh man, I got to do something now. How do I relieve this pain?
Right.
Some people never get to that. Some people stay at the lower levels of pain. Right. That's why they'll stay in a job they hate for 30, 40 years because it's just, the pain level's still low. For me, having a boss and dealing with those types of things has always been a 10 out of 10. So and I think that's true for every entrepreneur. It goes
back to the kid that got D's all the time, right? And the latchkey kid, you were just sort of like out of the womb. You were like, okay, now I'm not really going to fit in, right? Because my experience was completely different, right? Just, I guess it's like whatever the upbringing and how I'm raised, right? And then my school experience, for the most part, I was having a good time, right? And it was fun. So when I got into the Air Force, I kind of liked it, but I kind of knew that I didn't fit, right? Like it wasn't a good fit for me, but it wasn't like super painful. I think what you were talking about, it was probably like a 5. Right? It would occasionally go up, but the good thing about the military. So I got another job in 2018. And she was a federal employee, still works here. And she was in the same office, in the same position for like something like 17 years, right? And I was like, wow, you were in the same job for 17 years? And she's like, what are you talking about? You did 20 years in the Air Force. And I'm like, yeah, but 20 years in the Air Force is like 7 jobs, 7 jobs, and they only last like 2 or 3 years at a time. Right? That's what's good about it. As long as like you can bear through like a 2 or 3 year assignment, it's not so bad, And that's kind of like what the pattern that I liked about the military is like, it doesn't matter how much this sucks. It's not going to last forever kind of a mentality. Anyway, I'm talking too much about me. Let's talk about you. Okay. So now let's talk about this big life apocalypse, big veer sort of situation. So what happened? I know there was like some sort of big event. It was like something to do with cancer.
Oh yeah.
So what? Give us the preamble.
Hey, listen,
yeah.
You know, right in the middle of the global pandemic, I got diagnosed with colon cancer.
Ooh.
Right. So August 2020.
Yeah. August 2020.
So they found a plum-sized tumor in my lower colon during a colonoscopy.
Wow. Okay.
Well, the reason I got the colonoscopy was right when about the time COVID started, I started to have digestive issues and fatigue, and it just got worse and worse every month until after about 3 months, my wife said to me, "You're going to the doctor." And they did full tests and everything, and then they found the tumor in my colon. 10 days later, I was on an operating table, removing it, and then 6 rounds of chemotherapy. And, you know, I'm in remission. Literally just had my post-year colonoscopy 5 days ago, and I'm all clear. So, like, I'm alive because I listened to my wife and went to the doctor.
Totally.
Okay, so when you have symptoms,
probably hard, you know, to do that.
Well, colon cancer, this is something, you know, I will stress to every single person out there. If you're anywhere near the age of 50, go get your colonoscopy.
Totally.
It's becoming more and more prevalent in people under 50. And they don't know where this came from. There's no history of cancer in my family at all.
Right. You got lucky, really. You got lucky.
I got completely lucky. I would not be on this podcast today if I did not go get that taken care of.
Right.
And so if you feel anything going on, go get it taken care of. It's not that big of a deal to get a colonoscopy.
It's not. I did it.
But anyway, I got it, you know, really changed between the pandemic and turning 50 this coming up, which I am now.
Turning 50 is a big deal.
But between all of that stuff, it really kind of messed with me mentally, not just physically, of course, but mentally. You know, I believe the pandemic created the greatest shift in mindset in human being history. Probably. And I think that 50 to 100 years from now, even longer, historians will look back at 2020, and I think they will see that as a level sea change point when a lot of people, billions of people across the world, really started to think differently. Right. In the United States, I think you'll see a big change from it specifically as well, where a lot of people are like, you know what? I've been working at this job I hate for the last 30, 40 years.
Every day now. Yeah.
Well, that's what they call the Great Resignation.
Right.
I talk to people all the time.
Resignation. I love that.
Well, that's what they're calling this.
Okay.
And, you know, people want to blame it on they're getting money. No, from the government. No, what's happening is people are like, you know what? Literally, the world could end any day, and I don't have to deal with you, who's a jerk boss anymore, right? Like, I can go get a job for half the money with no stress. And you know what? If that means I just, you know, don't go out as much and I stay home, then fine. Like that's what's happening right now. It's a mental switch is why people, you know, financially they still need money. Yeah, but they're just not willing to put up with as much. They'd rather live in squalor than have to deal with your crap attitude and job anymore. Sorry.
Right.
So that's what's happening.
Right.
And it's across millions and billions of people. So I think there's been a big change, and I think it's going to continue. So
at some point in 2020, I don't know about you. I'll ask the question, but for me, right? And you know, we're all going through, I think we all sort of grieved the world going away because it was such that pre-pandemic world is gone forever. And I had to go through grief. and then at some point I accepted that and went through those stages. And then during lockdown, I think we all also realized how much time and money and thought and energy, right, that we put into things that are just, you know, unnecessary, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, listen, here's a perfect example. Right. You know, talking about veer.
Vroom, vroom, veer.
I'm vroom, veer.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, you know, 9/11 terrible tragedy.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's terrible.
It changed
terrible,
a lot.
Terrible.
It horrible.
It changed a lot, but the ultimate result of 9/11 was, of course, needlessly, victims lost their lives.
Right.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, really how it affected someone who wasn't in New York was they ultimately lost freedoms.
Totally.
And they have to now take their shoes off going into an airport. Okay.
Right.
So I'm not diminishing 9/11, okay, at all.
Right.
What I'm trying to point out is this global pandemic hit everyone.
Right.
Billions of people across race, religion, financial, physical, spiritual, mental. Like this is a much bigger event that caused so many more things to happen.
Right.
And it changed the world. I'm sorry, it did.
It totally changed the world.
And and that's what you're dealing with now. Okay. And so you have billions of people who are starting to have conversations like Gen Xers. Okay. Gen Xers, we were already the whatever people, right? We were like, we don't want to deal with your nonsense. We're not going to, we think we think all the politicians are corrupt. We're not like our, baby boomer older brothers and sisters, we're just like, whatever, just leave us alone. Okay.
Pretty much.
That's pretty much what we think. Right.
Yes.
And we just look at all this social media nonsense and wokeness and all this stuff. And we're like, okay, fine. You want to be woke? Go ahead and be woke. Just leave us out of it. Like that's the Gen Xer.
Right. Okay.
So now you have the baby boomers who are all going to die off in the next 20 to 25 years. And then the Gen Xers. But when you look at the level playing field, you've got 2/3 of the entire global workforce right now are millennials.
Right.
So the oldest millennial right now is 40.
Okay.
All right. So you basically got 2/3 of the entire global workforce are people between the ages of 25 and 40.
Okay. Right.
And they're about to inherit $68 trillion of baby boomers' money. Okay. Think about that. So in the next 20 to 25 years, as the baby boomers die off, they will pass on an estimated $68 trillion to their children.
Wow.
And those children grew up in a 9/11 world, some of them, right? But they grew up in a world, so they're going to be passed on trillions of dollars. And you think they're going to work? You think that they want a mortgage? You think that they want cars and car payments and insurance? They don't. You know what they want? They want to rent stuff. They want Uber rides. They want to have stuff delivered to their houses.
They want to be digital nomads, maybe.
Yes. All I'm trying to say is,
right.
All I'm trying to say is, look, the landscape has changed.
Totally.
Boomers, I'm sorry, I'm 50. I'll be where you are soon enough.
Right.
But the boomers are no longer going to control this world any longer, and they know it. That's why they're freaking out and holding on so hard.
Yes, they're making.
And the Gen Xers don't give a crap.
Right.
It's the millennials and the Gen Z people who are really going to have control of this planet moving forward.
Right. And the Gen Xers, there's not many of us. I don't know.
Right.
Just not like
there's not a lot
of
millennials. Correct.
Right. There's so few Gen Xers. We're kind of like a unicorn generation.
My point is
tiny.
this: if you're listening to this right now,
right,
you're probably a Gen X person,
right?
And I'm just here to tell you right now, we don't have that much time left, right? Like
we don't.
The acceleration that happened because of the pandemic of mindset and wanting to have better lifestyles, like Gen Xers are now realizing, wow, we really, really always believe, we never bought into the baby boomer stuff, but now we're thinking, what are we going to do? We're not going to have nest eggs. Most of us, we're not going to have 401k, like a lot of us are not going to have that money to sit around like the baby boomers are, who hoarded all that cash.
Okay.
So what do we do? So think like a Gen X, or think like a millennial or a Gen Z. You know what they're interested in? They're interested in experiences.
Right.
They're not interested in white picket fences and mortgages like we were brought up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like there's a new American dream.
Right. So that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so if a Gen X right now, you're sitting at 50 years old, you're saying to yourself, boy, I want you to really think about this for a second. Do you really really want to retire at 65 and sit around an assisted living facility? I'm telling you right now, Gen Xers don't want that.
No,
Nobody wants that.
nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Even
Baby boomers are
didn't
doing
want it
that
either. Yeah, they didn't want to either, but some of them didn't have any choice.
So really think about
Right.
what you want to do. Think about the word apocalypse really means revelation.
Okay. All right.
When the ancient meaning of the word apocalypse, it's not zombies. People think zombies. Okay. Apocalypse means revelation. You know, if you don't think 2020 was some type of apocalypse, and if you don't think you've had any revelation about your life, your career, relationships, whatever, then I don't know what to tell you, because every single person has examined their career and their life in the last year and a half.
Totally.
If you haven't,
and
then you must live a really privileged life.
And that word is an interesting word, because, it means many things were revealed that were previously hidden. Right? So like this whole idea of, the government's going to take care of you when you're old and all of that, it's just gone now, right?
Nobody's taking care of you.
Nobody's
the politicians
taking care of you, right.
and the corporations have done everything they can to squeeze everything out of you. And I'm talking across both sides.
Totally.
And there will be nothing left. The baby boomers are sitting on a bunch of money, but they're going to spend it all in assisted living facilities. Decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, look, right. I went through the pandemic and colon cancer and turning 50-ish all at the same time. Okay. So take a midlife crisis, throw colon cancer, a near death experience on top of it, and a global pandemic. That hyper accelerated my midlife crisis. What did I decide to do? I don't have any money, so I didn't go out and buy a red Ferrari.
Good.
Like baby boomers would do.
Right.
So what I decided to do was throw away a career.
Right.
And say, you know what? I did this to make money, but it really was never my passion.
Okay.
And I finally figured out what my passion is. It's inspiring other people. And so I wrote a one-man show, and I'm going to go out and perform it. And,
wow.
It's all about life, legacy, and purpose. And, I got the words mindset and lifestyle, impact and purpose and family tattooed right on my wrist. So I have to look at it every single day. Like, so like, if you're sitting here listening to this, I want you to really think about where you want to take the next, rest of your life, because it could end any day.
Right. Totally. And, let's talk about like sort of when you say legacy, what does that mean to you, or impact, one of those things?
Well, let's start with legacy. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with legacy, it's been co-opted, this word, a
little bit.
Legacy to, especially to Americans. Okay. But legacy in most people's definition is how much you left your children. Like,
okay,
right.
Like,
did you leave a lake house and a Ferrari and a big pile of cash for your kids?
Right.
I got news for you. That's not the true definition of legacy. Legacy isn't like it was in the 15th century. Legacy was leaving a male heir to your throne, right?
Okay, right.
Here's what legacy is. Legacy is when you're dead and your kids or your friends or family, let's say kids, for example, and they're sitting around together, and the one looks at the other one and says, "Remember how fun Dad was?"
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Think about it. Remember
that
time that Dad got so angry at us because we were fighting at Disney? Remember what an amazing hard worker he was. Now that I'm older and I'm looking at it, and like, remember how well he, even keel he was, and how he raised his family. Like, that's legacy. Okay,
I can get on board with that legacy.
but this is where
totally.
most people don't think about that kind of stuff. That's the true legacy. The impact and purpose. What impact are you creating on the world around you right now?
Right.
Okay. What is your purpose? Right. Now, it's tough to figure out what your purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
What gets you up every single day? These are the things that people really need to start thinking about, and they have,
right,
because of this acceleration,
totally,
right, and this big resignation. And that's how I define those types of things, and that's what my show's about.
right. I can totally, when I started thinking about this conversation and what my desired impact or legacy is, I thought about just like, what do I want people that love me and I love to think about when I'm gone about me? How do I want to be? How do I want those? Like there's 8 million people. I don't billion people, 7 billion people. I don't, not really concerned with the people that don't know me and love me. They're awesome too, but I'm concerned about the people that actually spent time with me, worked with me, hung out with me, played with me, whatever, I want them to remember me laughing and having a good time and trying to help them, work maybe, right? That's it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, like a library, right? Right? It can be rather mundane but meaningful to you personally.
Or
Or
you guys can go back to your, job you hate and spend the next 20 years, worrying about bill. Like at what point, like I'm trying to be inspirational here.
sure.
At what point, if you're listening to this right now, I'm not saying you got to go quit your job. Okay.
Right.
Like you got bills to pay, you got to send your kids to college, you need your medical benefits. Like you don't have to blow your life up. But at what point does your brain say, I really should probably thinking about doing something that creates an impact in this world and something I'm passionate about? Like at what point do you pull that trigger after global pandemic? Like maybe you never get to that point, but what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get you to really understand that and think about that.
Right.
There's a great, one of my favorite movies is Fight Club. Okay. There's a great scene in the movie Fight Club where Brad Pitt's character, Tyler Durden, pulls the clerk out of the convenience store, and he puts him on his knees in the alley, and he puts a gun in his head, and he says, "What did you always want to be in life?" And the guy gets him to admit he's crying. He says, "I always wanted to be a veterinarian." And the long story short is Tyler Durden says, "I have your ID. I know where you live. If you are not well on your way to becoming a veterinarian in a month," he goes, "I'm going to come back and put this bullet into your head." And the guy runs away screaming and crying.
Uh-huh.
And Ed Norton's character says, "You're sick. What is wrong with you?" And Tyler Durden says, "Tomorrow will be the greatest day of Raymond's life. Everything will taste better. He'll have more clarity, and he'll be moving forward and what is purpose and passion." And I always love that scene because the analogy is, someone puts a gun to your head. All right. And that's what I'm trying to get through to somebody listening to this right now.
Right.
If somebody put a gun to your head tonight and said, "You always wanted to do this," how much time you got left? You're 50. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I should be dead right now. I had a tumor, a 10-centimeter plum-sized tumor. Imagine taking a plum and sticking it in the middle of a garden hose. That was my tumor.
Yeah.
Okay. I should be dead right now.
Right.
Okay. So hopefully you don't get sick. Okay. But I want you to, that was the gun to my head. What's the gun to your head? And that's all I want you to do. I don't need you to quit your job. I want you to just start thinking about what could you be doing? What is your passion? What will make the next 20, 30 years of your life more fulfilling? What impact can you create in the world? What's your purpose? What mindset should you have waking up every single morning? That's what my show's about. That's what every person in our age group needs to think about.
That's a big deal, because I think a lot of people just stay in vroom vroom mode and they never really, the blessing in disguise of your cancer is you woke up, right? And I think that happens to a lot of us. So sometimes you don't, and that's sad. But yes, take this opportunity. It's a pandemic. wake up and think about what's going on. Okay, Jim, we are going to wrap up in a couple minutes here. So you are at jimkukral.com. So talk a little bit about how people can best get in touch with you and your stuff.
Yeah. My last name is just Kukral.
Right.
So Jim Kukral. So just Google me or go to jimkukral.com. You'll find out everything about my show. If you are the show is really for people who date nights. So married couples who have children. If you're a church or organization that has a lot of married couples and people who want a non-political, fun date night, family-friendly show that's a 90-minute laugher and a crier, then you will want to bring me in. Go to jimkukral.com, watch the demo reel. It's not up there yet, but it will be by the time somebody listens to this. And I'd love to come out to your town and do it. You will love the show. I even finished with a song on the show. So
that's awesome.
so if you're looking for something fun like that and you have a church or an organization that would love to bring that in, I'd love to talk to you about it.
That'd be great. And I kind of want to see the show now. Bring it out to Vegas.
Well, it's great. It's called Dad Shoe Diaries. It's called All the Things to Say. And the premise of the show is I'm a typical dad. I fall asleep on the couch in the basement. I eat too many chicken wings. And I wake up and there's an audience in my basement. And then I do a 90-minute show for them.
Love it.
It's the show.
It's an awesome premise. That's great. And, I eat chicken wings all the time. Had them yesterday. All right.
Well, if you eat chicken wings too late at night, you know what happens. You wake up in a hallucinogenic,
you wake up,
especially when you're older.
Doing a one-man show. That's awesome.
You do a one-man show in your basement to 100 strangers. Yeah.
All right, Jim, this has been a blast. Thank you for hanging out with me for about an hour. All right. And I will let you go. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Love being on.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.